Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a seriously remarkable piece of history. We're going to uncover the story of the Salt Lake Temple. But, we aren't just looking at it as a finished, static building. Instead, we're going to experience it through the grueling, everyday reality of the early pioneers who actually built it. These were people who literally carved their devotion out of the sides of mountains, transforming raw stone into soaring spires through sheer, unbreakable grit.
Let's dive right into this astounding number, 40. 40 years. That's how long it took to build this temple. I want you to really let the weight of that number sink in for a second. In the 19th century, life expectancy was vastly different than it is today. A worker could easily start swinging a hammer or driving a team of oxen on this project as a young guy and pass away from old age long before it was ever finished. It wasn't just a job, it was a total generational commitment. Fathers started the work, sons took over, and in some cases, grandsons finished it up. Imagine waking up every single day of your entire life to dedicate your labor to a finish line you knew you'd probably never see.
Section 1. Arrival in the Valley.
Tracing the timeline back to 1847, church members led by Brigham Young first arrived in the Salt Lake Valley. Just try to picture seeing this valley through their eyes. They were already absolutely exhausted from a grueling trek across the American frontier. We're talking walking thousands of miles. Yet, soon after settling into this completely untamed area, Brigham Young selected the specific site for the temple. And just a few short years later, on February 14, 1853, this massive generational undertaking officially kicked off. They barely had permanent roofs over their own heads, right? But they started this monumental public work anyway.
Section 2. The grueling granite labor.
So I want you to imagine the visceral physical toll of this process. First up, quarrying. That meant breaking immovable, dense mountain stone from the earth by hand, using super rudimentary tools. Next came loading, lifting that unbelievably heavy stone onto wooden wagons. Just think of the splintering wood, the crushed fingers, the absolute sheer muscle power required here. Finally, transporting the blocks. They relied solely on animal power, teams of oxen, and absolute human will to drag these immense weights miles down a canyon to the building site. It was slow, agonizing work. A good day might literally mean moving a single stone just a few miles.
And it wasn't just the stone that was heavy, it was the circumstances. These pioneers had to conquer devastating, daily obstacles just to keep the whole project alive. Imagine trying to maneuver those immense granite blocks through blistering summer heat, or waking up to freezing snow-packed canyon winters with improvised tools and hands completely numb from the cold. They were out there repairing broken wagon wheels on the fly. Add to that some severe financial difficulties. This wasn't some well-funded government contract, right? It was a community sacrificing whatever meager resources they had to keep the work moving forward.
Section 3. 40 years of struggle. To give you a real sense of scale here, this staggering 40-year timeline makes this the longest temple construction in the entire history of the LDS Church. There were periods where progress seemed entirely halted, periods where the foundations were actually buried to hide them from advancing armies, and times of just immense poverty. But they kept digging the granite. They kept dragging it down the mountain. It demanded an unparalleled level of collective sacrifice that completely defined the existence of these early settlers for 4 straight decades.
Section 4. Grace, Spires, and Symbolism.
Now notice the stark contrast born from all this effort. On one hand, you have raw, rough, jagged mountain granite, coated in dust, hauled at a snail's pace by exhausted oxen. But on the other hand, you have elegant Gothic and Romanesque architectural grace. It is absolutely fascinating how the most unyielding, stubborn material, granite, was coaxed into a permanent elegance that completely defied the harsh conditions of its builders.
Those raw, heavy stones were transformed into a breathtaking masterpiece. The building stands at an imposing 210 feet tall. It's roughly 64 meters into the sky. And remember, it's constructed almost entirely from that stubborn canyon granite. It's adorned with 6 towering spires and incredibly intricate symbolism carved right into the stone. Every moon, sun, and star detail required a craftsman to painstakingly chip away at the hardest rock available, turning what's basically a fortress-like material into delicate art. It's really mind-blowing.
Section 5. a monument of perseverance.
After 4 decades of hardship, of broken wagons, freezing winters, and grueling labor, the pioneers' ultimate triumph was finally realized on April 6, 1893, when Wilford Woodruff dedicated the completed temple. Just think about the people in the crowd that day. There were likely elderly men and women weeping who remembered breaking the ground 40 years earlier, standing right alongside young adults who had never known a time when the temple wasn't under construction.
So, why does all this matter to us today? Well, that unimaginable pioneer struggle forged what is now one of the most recognized religious landmarks in the United States. It stands as the spiritual center of the LDS Church and the very heart of Temple Square in Salt Lake City. Millions of visitors from all over the world are drawn to it every single year. But beyond its religious significance, it stands as a universal, permanent testament to human devotion. When you look at it, you aren't just looking at a building. You're looking at 40 years of crystallized willpower.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought to kind of chew on. What modern achievements could we build today if we possessed the 40-year patience of those early pioneers? In our fast-paced modern world, we expect things to be finished in days, weeks, or maybe a few years at most. But the Salt Lake Temple totally challenges that mindset. It asks us to consider what monumental things we are willing to start today, knowing we might never actually see the finish line, but knowing the foundation we lay will stand for generations. Thanks so much for exploring this incredible story with me.